The glittering illusion of the British monarchy didn't just crack behind closed doors, it was systematically dismantled in a single afternoon, leaving King Charles and Queen Camilla completely stranded in the past. Princess Charlotte has just been handed a massive, history-making public role at an age when most young kids are still struggling to figure out basic school division. But the real shockwave rippling through the palace isn't the announcement itself. It is the cold, calculated way it was delivered. This was a unilateral strike planned in absolute secrecy, executed on a casual summer afternoon, and announced in a way that made it undeniably clear that Queen Camilla had absolutely no idea it was coming. This wasn't just a proud father elevating his daughter. It was a silent, beautifully executed palace coup that revealed exactly who is actually holding the keys to the institution. Before we expose the terrifying reality of this shadow war, the secret polls, and the desperate emergency meetings called by a panicked Queen Camilla, take a quick second to subscribe to our channel and join us here at Crown Watch. By subscribing, you ensure you never miss the raw, unfiltered truth behind the royal household. Your vital support allows us to bring you the real stories the old guard desperately tries to bury. Thank you. To truly understand the gravity of this fracture, we have to look closely at the setting. Because in the high-stakes world of royal optics, the location tells you absolutely everything. This monumental restructuring didn't happen during a glittering state dinner at Buckingham Palace, surrounded by rigid protocols and official advisors. Instead, Prince William chose a casual garden event, a low-key charity gathering that everyone expected to be a routine, polite media affair. Journalists showed up expecting the usual, predictable imagery. Princess Charlotte smiling sweetly, Prince George looking slightly uncomfortable in a tailored blazer, Princess Catherine looking effortlessly flawless, and Prince William delivering a gracious, standard speech about fundraising. That was the script everyone thought they were following. Instead, William stepped up to the microphone and delivered what amounts to a complete execution of the traditional royal hierarchy, right there in the open summer air. While palace officials found out the truth in real time alongside the rest of the world. William spoke briefly about honoring Queen Elizabeth's enduring legacy and building a concrete bridge for the future of the crown. Then, without a single warning to Clarence House, he dropped the ultimate bombshell, stating that Princess Charlotte will begin her official duties as a direct crown representative not eventually, not someday in the distant future, but right now. The crowd in attendance audibly gasped. Hardened journalists began frantically scrambling to get their phones up, because absolutely nobody outside of Kensington Palace was prepared for a shift of this magnitude. Senior palace staff members stood frozen in absolute shock. This monumental assignment was not on the official schedule. It was never briefed to the press in advance, and it completely bypassed the traditional channels of monarchical approval. The terrifying truth about royal announcements is that they are meticulously engineered to follow a strict pattern of absolute unity. There is always a heavily reviewed press release, careful coordination with the king's private office, and a manufactured sense that the entire family is moving forward as one solid unit. Even if behind the scenes they are completely tearing each other apart, the public performance must always be flawless harmony. So, when an institutional announcement of this scale happens without King Charles and Queen Camilla even present, without a single supportive statement from their offices, and without even a passing mention of their names in the speech, that is not an oversight. That is a deliberate, high-voltage message. And the deafening silence from the King and Queen afterward has spoken much louder than any official accusation ever could. There was no joint statement, no warm words of grandfatherly pride from Clarence House, nothing but a hollow void where the current rulers should have been. And that empty void is the real story. What makes this tactical move so devastating is the hidden context that led up to that summer afternoon. For months, quiet whispers had been circulating through the corridors of power about William holding private, unrecorded meetings with senior Commonwealth officials. Palace insiders noticed Catherine quietly taking on heavy advisory roles that traditionally belong exclusively to the reigning monarch or the Queen Consort. Even more surprising, Whispers emerged that Princess Charlotte was secretly being run through intensive media and protocol training at an age that deeply shocked old-school courtiers. These weren't loud, dramatic rumors. They were the quiet, dangerous kind that get immediately denied if a journalist asks directly. But they kept coming. And they all pointed to a single, inescapable conclusion. Kensington Palace was orchestrating a massive takeover, and the person watching this unfold with growing terror was Queen Camilla. Camilla had every reason to be absolutely terrified of this shift. She has spent decades of her life engaging in a brutal, calculated battle to completely rehabilitate her public image. She survived being branded the other woman, endured being the most hated figure in modern British history, and weathered a relentless storm of public skepticism and constant comparisons to the late Princess Diana. It took immense patience, flawless PR strategy, and decades of staying in the shadows to finally achieve her ultimate goal, the title of Queen Consort. But just as she reached the summit she fought so hard for, and just as Charles finally inherited the throne he waited his entire life to claim, the ground began shifting violently beneath them. William and Catherine began pulling massive global crowds that completely eclipsed the king's official events. National polls continuously showed that the Prince and Princess of Wales were the most trusted and beloved members of the family, while the current king and queen struggled to generate genuine public enthusiasm. Behind the palace walls, a heartbreaking reality was taking hold as King Charles, who should have been celebrating his hard-earned reign, began visibly withdrawing under the crushing weight of his duties. Palace insiders reveal that the king became increasingly unstable and frustrated as his energy levels dropped, forcing him to cancel major public engagements due to sheer exhaustion. While his official advisors quickly dismissed the absences as a natural break after a grueling first year on the throne, the people closest to the king knew a darker truth was unfolding. Charles was deeply frustrated. He felt completely overshadowed inside his own kingdom. Everywhere William and Catherine went, they were greeted with a warmth and global media frenzy that Charles, with his distant demeanor and the lingering public resentment surrounding Camilla, simply could not replicate. The tension behind closed doors escalated to an extraordinary level. Reports indicate that Charles engaged in furious arguments with his senior advisors about how to contain William's rapidly rising profile. Shocking sources even claim that Queen Elizabeth, in her final months of life, had explicitly urged Charles to prepare for a swift, smooth handover of practical power to William, knowing that the survival of the monarchy rested entirely on the younger generation. But Camilla fiercely opposed any shift that didn't keep her and Charles at the absolute center of the institution. From her perspective, her resistance makes perfect sense. She did not endure decades of public humiliation just to be cast aside as an irrelevant footnote, while her stepson and his wife completely took over the operational control of the crown. But institutional power is cold, and it does not care about personal feelings. The survival of the British monarchy depends entirely on public relevance and the ability to connect with a modern world. And right now, William and Catherine are delivering that relevance in a way Charles and Camilla simply cannot match. The global chessboard has completely changed. Foreign ambassadors have quietly started bypassing Clarence House, directing their primary focus and communications toward Kensington Palace. Palace staff members who were once fiercely loyal to Charles and Camilla have begun shifting their allegiances to the future king and queen, sensing where the true power now resides. Desperate to regain control, Camilla reportedly called an urgent emergency meeting with top palace advisors to demand a restoration of the old hierarchical order. But when she looked to Charles for a powerful intervention, the king's response was a chilling admission of defeat. He essentially told her to let it unfold, stating that the transition had already begun. That is not a monarch asserting his divine right. That is a broken king who knows the ultimate decision has already been made for him. When you look back at that Kensington Palace garden party, William's historic speech wasn't just a proud announcement about his daughter, it was a bold, public declaration of sovereign intent. He looked directly at the crowd and stated that the crown is not a static relic of the past, but a living promise of active service, and that promise belongs entirely to the future. He spoke openly about evolving centuries-old traditions, rather than blindly clinging to them out of fear. And then he brought Princess Charlotte forward, announcing that she would immediately begin attending official engagements alongside her mother, shaping a completely new vision for the royal family. This is a radical departure from traditional protocol. Normally, royal children are introduced to public life through a slow, incredibly cautious progression that respects the rigid hierarchy, keeping the direct heir in the spotlight while siblings remain deep in the background. But William deliberately elevated Charlotte, signaling that she is being groomed for massive, independent responsibility that will rival her brother George's public presence. The striking images of that moment flooded social media instantly. Charlotte standing tall beside her father, projecting a composure that was far beyond her young years, wearing a modest, steady smile that instantly reminded the world of both Princess Diana and Queen Elizabeth. The public response was overwhelming, and the message sent to Clarence House was brutal. This young family is the undeniable future of the monarchy, and that future is starting right now, whether the current king and queen approve of it or not. But the most brilliant piece of this entire operation is the silent, masterful strategy of Princess Catherine. She stood calmly beside William throughout the entire announcement, keeping a reassuring hand on George's back, telegraphed absolute family stability to the cameras. But behind the scenes, Catherine has been anything but passive. She has spent years meticulously studying the complex dynamics of the royal household, and this entire rollout was the result of her flawless long-term planning.